school board for Monday, June 10th at 5:30 p.m. Like my water bottle. Okay, and I don't have my glasses, so I'm pulling things forward here. If you could record the members present and absent, Mr. Brooks, that'd be great. I will establish a quorum. So let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, agenda is on the approval of agenda is the next item. So moved by Rob, second by Rich. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all those in favor of approval of the agenda presented, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And Mr. Brooks, you noticed.
Yep, got it.
Lindy come in? It's okay.
31, man. You guys got through 4 items.
Hey, we're efficient. We're efficient. Just want to make sure you got credit for being here.
5:31, man.
Next agenda item is to approve the consent agenda items 7 through 9. Please let me know if we need to pull any of those out for discussion.
So moved.
Okay. Second by Kirsty. All right, motion on the floor, which is no discussion allowed, so all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 10 would be hearing of delegations and written communications. Anybody here that wants to chat? Okay, and nothing written. So we'll move on to number 11, administrator's report.
Tonight we'll have JLG here after a while. We told them probably by the time we get done with the some of the stuff, probably 6:15, 6:30. They know whenever their time is, they'll be ready. Repair the block on the north middle school gym wall will hopefully be starting week of June 17th. If you look at that wall, it's not good. It keeps flaking, so they're going to come in, replace a bunch of block, and get that filled in for us to take care of it. We have concrete repair that will be going on in various locations with sidewalks and different things. That's a yearly situation. And then current open positions, we have elementary library para that's open. We have a custodial position, sped driver for taking students Sioux Falls for next year. And then of course, always bus drivers, if we can get some more lined up there. So typical June, moving along, finishing stuff out for the state, starting to get stuff ready for next year.
Okay, Mr. Brooks, did you have anything? Okay. All right, we will move on to the next agenda item, which is to approve the special ed summer hours.
This is just a showing up of what each year we always bring forward, what the summer hours are going to look like. No big change to speak of.
Just to estimate where they think the hours will fall. And we bring it forward just through where we run the summer school program for special ed. It totals about 36,000 when we run our estimates. And then it is in our budget, something we budget plan for each year.
These are items that are written into their IEPs too.
Right.
Where does the funding come to pay for this?
It comes from the special ed fund. Since it's on their IEPs.
Okay. Can we get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Rob. Any second?
Second.
All right. Jordan, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please vote by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consider increase to school meal prices. Mr. Brooks.
And this is something we haven't done for quite a number of
Yeah.
years, so we're proposing a 20-cent per meal increase to lunches and a 10-cent per meal increase to breakfast. If a student eats lunch and breakfast every day for the year, it'll be $52.50 higher, so that'd be like the increase for that. Seconds and the other stuff will remain the same. We charge $1 for a second for an entree. They come back up for vegetables and that, there's no charge for any of that. The COVID dollars and the funding for the supply chain is not here next year. And so then that's what sustains us. We didn't do an increase this past year.
And the 5250 is if they eat breakfast every morning, and the vast majority of students don't eat the breakfast program.
That'd be the increase if they ate every meal.
Right. And then we have the free and reduced.
Yep, free and reduced.
Lunches.
Reduced are set by the state. Currently, they're 30 cents for breakfast, 40 cents for lunch, or it's set by the feds, not state. But I haven't heard that's changed, but that should be coming out pretty soon.
Right. Okay, can we get a motion?
So moved.
Rob, second. Okay, by Rich. Do we have any discussion or questions on this? I don't even remember the last time we had to raise this.
It's been a lot of years.
I think I've been on for 7 or 8 years and I don't recall ever. Yeah, so that's a pretty good run.
Yeah, and if we'd have to increase it a little bit, it's better to do a little bit at a time than
Right.
have a big hit.
Yes.
So,
Yep, definitely. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next agenda item is to consider the audit agreement for 23-24 fiscal year.
So ELO, this is their proposal to us. The amount is $19,500 plus out-of-pocket expenses. Last year was $17,600. The year before, $60,500. They do always have $200 worth of travel and out-of-pocket expenses on it. The reason they say the jump is going up so high is dealing with all the additional federal funds and all the rules that are associated with them. And this should then be the last year of that. So hopefully we would see it go back down. Our recommendation would be to approve.
Okay. All right. Get a motion?
So moved.
Rob is on a mission. Second by Jordan. Okay, any discussion or questions on that agreement? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please vote by stating aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. What time is it? Okay, we've got 6 minutes, so we better hold off a little bit. Do we want to jump to number 20?
it's your call, Kim.
Okay, I think we can do that. So number 20 is resolution of thanks for a couple of our board members. So somebody's gonna, yeah, too bad he's not here for that picture. We'd like to recognize you both, Rob and Rich, with a resolution. And I am going to go ahead and do Rich's first, because you have stepped up to the plate and have stayed on the board, and we really, really appreciate you doing that. And we valued your input. So, not that we haven't valued Rob's, but you know, he was you know, wanting to maybe let somebody else take over last year, but we talked him into staying, and so thank you for that.
Sure.
With that, I would like to recognize Rich by saying, whereas Rich Avery was elected and has served as a board member for the Madison Central School District for the past 4 years, whereas he has served on many standing and special committees. Therefore, let this proclamation be spread upon the official minutes of the Madison Central School District in recognition of Rich Avery for his service to the district, staff, and patrons of the Madison Central School District. So Rich, we have a plaque for you. Yeah, it's
Take some both ways, because I still have this.
How do you want to be at?
It's always got, it's always got a landscape, right? Otherwise they get blown
Yeah,
up.
thank you, Rich, we really appreciate it. Please hang it out. All right, Mr. Hanemichael, we'll just step in front of Rich. He's old news now, so. Okay, well, Rob, we too would like to thank you for everything that you've done and taking the role of state leadership too with the Associated School Board has been greatly appreciated by not just Madison, but also the state. So thank you for stepping up and doing that for us while you've been here. Whereas Rob Hanemichael was elected and has served as a board member for the Madison Central School District for the past 7 years, whereas he has served on many standing and special committees, therefore let this proclamation be spread upon the official minutes of the Madison Central School District in recognition of Robert Hanemichael for his service to the students, staff, and patrons of the Madison Central School District. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you. Thanks, guys. We did these both this month because Rob is moving, and I think Rich is going to be on vacation, hopefully, next month. So
I'll call in if I have service.
yeah, that would be awesome. We'd love that. We would love that. So it is now 6:42, so a few more minutes. These individuals are for.
That's, Mr. Ricky's out there.
Okay.
Which one?
There are 3 of them, aren't
They
there?
want to come in for
I was hoping Johnny would show
the
up.
budget.
Sorry, I ditched you for your very last bill review.
Yeah, we
I,
We put both of them on it because of that, the last one.
I left Vermillion at 3:45, so.
Oh, geez.
It's so
Made
it's out there.
What are you gonna do with your money
I
next
can talk him
time?
into coming in,
Well, actually, you're just
sit up there and listen to you, Ed, sorry.
Oh, geez.
What, 19 was last year, so is that our over?
This will be a lot
Last
quicker this year.
because of the time
So
that
what's
we
our
were
over under, 14?
Never had it over under before.
Okay.
Yeah, really good stuff.
6 o'clock here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
depends on whether I got ready or not.
Usually I start off a little late.
Does he have a laser pointer?
One Monday out of the month.
Yeah.
He has a laser pointer. I
So
guess
you'll be teaching.
You turn down the lights.
Yeah.
We'll just do
It's been a few years since I used the laser pointer.
How about you,
I got one out in the
Mr.
pickup.
Avery?
When you find out they're banned in schools, and I'm sitting there using it on camera.
Set an example.
I was gonna say, you'll find something to do. You'll find something, I'm sure of it. Okay, well, are we close enough? Can we go ahead and get started, do you think, or?
You better give it one more minute.
Okay, 1 more minute, all right. See, that's why we keep Mr.
That way
Jurgensen
nobody can
around.
question it.
Yes.
I'll fill our 1 minute.
Oh my gosh, you've been holding out on us.
Sugar cookies.
Yay.
Start with Calbee.
This is great for Mr. Brooks's budget.
Keep it right away.
Yeah.
Little sugar.
He doesn't get one till he's done.
I don't know if we like, only if I don't know if we liked your budget yet.
Just set one aside.
Such a good baker. Oh, no, thank you. Hey, it's 6:45.
5:45.
Or 5:45. Thank you for that. So we're gonna move on to agenda item number 15 and conduct a hearing to consider the proposed budget for the 24-25 school year.
So I'll just start by every month, not all schools do this, but we show our budget, live every month. So every single month we go out to our bills, the revenue report and expense report are our budget. With the revenue report, you'll see each account code and the amount we have budgeted. Then you'll see what we received each month and what we have total and what's remaining in the budget. So we have all funds. So every month at any time somebody can see our budget, they can see where we're at. I do think that's a neat thing that we do. Some schools just show their cash balances. We show it all. Here's our expenditure side. Just kind of same thing. You'll see this first one's like the elementary code, 1111 is elementary, what our budget is, what we spend it, what's remaining. So I just kind of thought I would start with that before we go into it. So then our overall budget, this is the summary piece, all those numbers, which that's this year's, but all those numbers on next month's will match up to this budget. We have our general fund, capital outlay fund, special ed fund, a bond redemption fund, food service fund, driver's ed fund, and a health plan, and our total budget. And so this year's overall budget is about $299,000, or $2,990,000 above the prior year. Our general fund only changed by about $7,400. Now when I go through the top 10 list, you'll see why. The capital outlay goes up about $2.6 million. That has to relate with JLG and what they're proposing. Special education fund went up about $63,000. Bond redemption goes up about $7,200. Food service goes up about $4,200. Driver's ed is $500. And our health plan about $200,000. And we did that amendment last month. A high claim year. So that's our total budget summary. The key to this one is fund balance use. If it's a positive number, we're using fund balance. If it's a negative number, we'd be putting towards increasing the fund balance. So with the general fund, it's budgeted to be $386,000 that we would use of fund balance. 40 of that's contingency, and just like every year, you budget revenues as accurate as you can, which tend to over budget a little bit on expenditure. So in theory, not all of this would be used. On the capital fund, we'd be using $2.3 million. We've been setting aside money for this project coming up, so we'd be ready for it when the time came. And that's what we'd be using now. Special education, about $187,000. We've had some larger out-of-district placements, and that's kind of what's drawing to that. Bond redemption, we always set a little bit aside, so that last half year we don't have to tax. It's a 20-year bond, but that way it saves our taxpayers a pretty good amount of interest by how we structured that at the beginning. Food service, $67,000 of fund balance, so even with the increase we did, we'll still use about $67,000 of fund balance. And a lot of it has to do with food costs. They have come down, but they're still higher than where they've been, so we'll have probably another adjustment in the next year. And the driver's ed and health plan, we got to set this up balanced. And then you can kind of see where our revenues come from, what's local, what's county, what's state, what's federal. And then appropriations, you can see what goes towards the elementary, the middle school, high school. Special programs are still considered educational. And then counseling services and OTPT, this is what's considered support, all this below. And then we have some community service programs. And then we have kind of all other activities, which is co-curricular, debt service, like that. So that's the breakdown of the budget. The two documents I showed you earlier have the full breakdown from salaries to benefits to supplies and everything. Same with revenue, what's admissions, and what we get from taxes on there. So that's the budget summary. I'll go into the top 10 budget changes. Most all of it is done, kind of the top 10. Oh, I did want to break down the top 10. Yeah, right before that, the instructional. About 57% of our budget is instructional. Salaries, benefits, supplies, all of that. The state average is 52%, so we spend more towards instruction than the state average for schools. In the 2000s, which is support, which is admin, school buses, custodial, SR, our school resource officer, nursing, libraries, technology, that support services, we spend 37% of the budget. In the services, it's less than 0.5%. 6,000, that's our activities. Band, football, play, those kind of larger ones. It's 5% of the budget.
And what is that called, I'm sorry?
Co-curricular.
Okay, so that's that.
All the activity pieces. And then the contingency is 40,000, that's less than 0.5%. That totals up to our 100%. So just kind of a breakdown of how, I think it's interesting that we spend more towards instruction than average schools. I think that's kind of a neat
Yes, I think that's
statistic.
good.
All right, top 10 list. Number 10, our liability, property, and auto insurance expenses have increased $23,600. They'll get bigger. Our title funding revenue has decreased, so that's not so good, but
Oh.
41,100. And a lot of that was with COVID, they had added to title.
Oh,
Now it's
okay.
gone. Our special education, number 8, our special education out of district placement expenses have increased, $57,100. Number 7, our interest from our holding accounts of revenue has increased. That's kind of in all of our holding accounts. That increased by $101,000. Number 6 is our staff salary and benefit increases, so our negotiation packages that we did. That's just over 200,000. That was number 5. No, that was sorry. I didn't number 6. Number 5, our health insurance fund expense of it increased. That's right at 200,000. Number 4, our slope loan, which is from the high school, that was our energy efficiency loan, it's gone. So that line item decreases 225,400. And then that's money we have set aside towards projects and other things. Number 3, our special education formula revenue has increased. That's 311,000 from the prior year. Number 2 is our general fund formula revenue increase, and that increased 343,000. And our number 1 budget changer, the ESSER COVID dollar revenue is decreased $1,092,000. We'll have $1 million less in revenue next year than we did in this year with those funds being gone. But a little over half that was one time.
Okay, so the special education increase.
Okay, yeah.
311,000.
Yep.
And the expense has increased 57,000.
Just the out-of-district expense.
Just the out-of-district
Yep, yep.
expense.
Yeah.
So,
We'll see we should see a deficit into next year.
Okay.
Not as large as this year's.
Okay.
We had some students age out.
all right.
But it is, it really is driven by high-cost students, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
It's just costs a lot. It's an expense that we undergo. And so on a year we have more,
Right.
we'll tend to run negative. On a year we have less, and we'll bank
Yes.
some back.
Okay,
And that can change week to week.
Changes
Yes.
fast, yeah.
yes.
What were the ESSER $1 million used for last year?
So we used, get ready, might be easier. They were spread out all throughout the budget. Anything with a little, the 334, 335 codes down here. So we used them, at the time of COVID, we decreased in our enrollment, but we didn't reduce staff. We held our staffing the same, so we used them to hold staffing the same. So that's about 2 people per building. We've actually come back and have more people now. We've bought vehicles, we've bought vent systems, we put there's a whole
There's a whole list,
Yeah,
but most
there's-
of them are
yeah,
not
we were using
reoccurring.
about-
Most of them would be one
yeah,
time.
we're using between 700.
So it's not like we're gonna be short.
Yeah, yep. So I mean, it does leave us with that deficit. We're 380-ish of a deficit, but our current holding for fund balance, I mean, it's 3 to 5 years before we have to make a large change to what we're doing, and a lot of it has to do with that enrollment.
What is the enrollment predictions? Are you expected to increase, stay the same?
We should hold about the same. Our senior class is bigger than our kindergarten class coming in, but then the St. Thomas numbers coming in, and then from what we've had from kind of move-ins. So we should actually hold very much the same. Our high school averages more per class in our elementary, so in theory we'd have a loss each year, but last year we picked up 40-some students we didn't know about. So I mean, that just kind of moved in, so we probably have some pretty good move-in numbers. But we did estimate to be very close to the same.
So you said a few just seconds ago about in a few years, we're gonna have to deal with this, with
Okay.
what?
So a deficit, you can only spend on a deficit for so long until you're out of fund balance, or until you reach a point where you don't wanna spend anymore.
Okay.
And so then if the state formula or our enrollments, don't correct it, But we've had this deficit for, there's only been 2 years since I've been here that we have a deficit spent.
Right.
And it kind of just goes up and down, depending on where things are at. So we've held well. We typically will try to make sure our deficit is gonna last 3 years, so we just keep adjusting so that we never actually hit it.
Okay.
But it does at some point, you do have to.
Right.
What's our current fund balance at the end of this budget?
We'll be right around, in the old formula, right around about 22%, 2.3-ish million.
Okay, and that was always a healthy number ever since
Yeah.
I've been here.
You
Because
want-
you get
you
over
want-
2 million and it's like you're not using the resources
Yeah, yeah.
wisely either.
Right.
You know,
During-
To the benefit of why you have those.
Okay.
So as long as it stays around that 2 million, I think.
Yeah.
Then
That's the way
you're
it's been in
good.
the past.
Okay.
About, if you get to 12%, that's about as low as you wanna go, and plus that's like 1.2 million, that's, when you hit that, you don't wanna go much lower, cause we get our money twice a year pretty much with taxes, so then we'd be, in essence, borrowing for payroll certain months of the year, and that you kinda wanna avoid, but,
And it fluctuates from like month to month, like you said.
yeah, yeah,
So you gotta go from your lowest.
yeah, from my low
Month.
Okay. So I just want everybody to just understand that because,
If our enrollment declines,
yeah,
it'll be something we'd be facing.
concerned about,
Yeah.
really.
It's really on enrollment.
Yeah.
There are a lot of schools right now that would love to have the budget we have.
Oh my gosh.
We,
Um,
yeah.
Because there are a lot of schools that are trying to figure it out right now how they're gonna make changes, so. There's a lot of variables that we never know from year to year, that's why we gotta look at it every year. And, one big variable is peer every year too, so we gotta see what comes out of that every year, so. Mitch does a great job with everything.
And then our capital outlay fund, we do not tap into that.
We don't use any.
Yeah.
Any flexibility, yeah.
right
Any
now.
flexibility
We
of
have
that
the
right now, and I
ability
think
to.
that's something else that is,
Yeah.
we need to be very proud of in a sense.
Yeah.
Mr. Brooks, I mean, there's a lot of other school districts that have to tap into that to balance, and we are very fortunate that we don't have to.
Feel safe in saying that we're in the minority.
Yes,
Of schools
yes.
as far as those
Yeah.
that do or do not use
Yeah.
flexibility on their capital outlay.
I think we have some very good decision makers behind the wheel.
Yep.
Of the budgeting process.
Mm-hmm, I too. I'm very grateful for that.
Dynamic duo over there.
Yep.
It's our whole admin team, because the principals, they have
Ian's not here.
our job.
So, yeah, so that makes our job a heck of a lot easier, guys.
Boy, it does.
Yeah, okay.
And then, that's the budget hearing, that concludes, did I get the over-under? Did I get the under?
I think you get the under.
You're doing so good, you keep it going.
Just keep
rolling.
going.
13
Entertaining as well as
Yeah,
informative.
13 minutes.
13
I said
minutes.
14 over and over.
Okay.
Goddamn.
That is a record for me. And then our annual budget resolution, here's kind of our wording as we need to word it. This top, or this middle paragraph is our budget numbers. And then the third paragraph is our levy numbers. The school year and the levy year fall on different calendars. It's July to June versus January to December. So we have to levy a certain amount in order to meet the budget numbers. And then so our general fund is done in mills, so 1.197 for owner occupied. And these are kind of set by law. Special ed 1.488. If you're deficit spending, you should tax after 1.488, because then if you do need state assistance, that would help you if you're taxing at that level. Capital outlay, it's not our max, but it's pretty close. And then the bond redemption, that's in order to make sure we cover our payment. And it's 2 years average to make our payment year. Our opt-out, we're still taxing at 100,000. So we do have flexibility if we needed immediate funds to take our opt-out up to 250,000. That's what's approved onto it. But as we're sitting now, we can continue to opt out at 100,000. So this is the resolution that we would make. You do not have to approve the budget in this meeting. We typically have in June, but we have until I think September or early October.
But we could, correct?
Yeah.
We could approve it.
Did I got that big enough? Okay.
So if we wanted to move forward with approving it, that's just what our motion would need to say. Otherwise, we do not have to have any action on it, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, so do we need to have any discussion or anything, or on the budget?
Normally, do we hear it and then approve it the following month?
We normally put it in June
In
each year
June,
after the
yeah.
budget hearing.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve it.
Rich will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and Rob will second. Do we need to have some further discussion before we vote on this motion? Motion. Okay, there is a motion on the floor to go ahead and approve the budget for the 24-25 year. So all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to that motion, please vote by saying, same sign, how about that? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Brooks.
I'll post it tomorrow.
Okay, do we need to read this, resolution? We don't have to do that, do we? The budget,
No,
the property
No.
tax request or
Posted.
anything? Okay,
That gets posted in the paper, correct?
I'll put it in the minutes, yeah.
okay, perfect.
Excuse me.
All right, so then we can just go right on to executive, can't we?
Yep.
Okay, all right, it is 6:01. So we'll have to have you step out for now. we'll come out of executive session at 6:24 p.m. Would anybody like to make a motion to consider the approval of the 24-25 classified agreement?
So moved.
Actually, I should restate that. To go ahead and make a motion to approve the 24-25 classified agreement.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, Rob and Rich. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Okay.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So now we have the JLG facilities study presentation, which we're all very excited to see.
I'm out. Dan's going to get that cord.
Okay. This up here.
Longer cord.
Yeah.
Where do you want?
Well, I need a little space for my
Yeah.
glasses. Thanks for having us here.
Absolutely, thank you.
We can introduce ourselves while we wait for the hookup.
Okay.
You said we're from JLG. I'm Jacob Rickey. I'm an architect at JLG, project manager from Madison. So a lot of familiar faces in the room, and excited to be here.
Awesome. Graduate, also alumni.
Yes, alumni.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Herm Harms, I'm also with JLG, Senior Project Manager, Architect.
Okay. And where are you an alumni? Might as well get that on the record.
I was born and raised in Sioux Falls. Did my college work down in Nebraska at that time, down in Lincoln, so
All right.
I'm a big red guy.
Okay, thank you. Well, you have the floor.
Yeah, and I meant to bring printed copies and just spaced it. So I am going to share my screen and present it. If we need to zoom in or we need to look at things more closely, just let me know. I apologize for that.
That's okay. I may get up and just move closer in case I find it.
Did find it.
I don't usually bring
I mean,
this
you did, but.
I need
Basically,
distance.
here
I need
a few
distance,
months ago,
not close up.
the
And
school,
I have my sunglasses, but I don't have my.
the school asked us to
It found a minute.
come and
We can,
visit the three different
oh, I got the long card.
facilities, the high school, middle school, and elementary schools, and do a visual assessment. And so that's what Jacob and a few other of the team members at JLG has been working on for the past few months. And it's going to be a draft version at this time. We hope to finalize it after this meeting based on any comments that we get tonight. It's a kind of what you would call a 20,000 foot level view without getting into a lot of detail on the different facilities. Depending on what the board wants to do and what the district wants to do, next steps would be getting into more detail and in particular areas, you know, whether that's the middle school entrance or the gymnastics building, or you know, whatever it may be, some of the middle school interior facilities or whatever the case may be. But Jacob's going to get into a little bit more detail and go through the methodology and processes, and then at the end we'll probably get into a couple of options of what we can look at to address some of what we found.
All right. So, like Herm said, there's kind of the two pieces to it: the facilities assessment study that we did for the district as a whole, all three facilities, elementary, middle, and high school, and then the little bit more detailed study of a couple of focus areas that we had discussed with Joel and Mitch and the rest of the admin team as projects that are a little bit more on the high on the priority list. But you know, from a process standpoint, we had a kickoff meeting and heard the laundry list of items that every
admin staff had for updates and, you know, every room in their building that needed things. And it was great to hear a lot of the really passionate things that they have and they are aware of. But just kind of got our head into the project, and then got all the drawings, the existing drawings from the school. We spent some time building out a model of the building and studying the existing plan from a kind of a size and a needs standpoint. Then we visited the school, spent a full day walking around with Brad at the time. He got us into every space in each of the buildings, and we just took photographs, documented different things. Like Harm said, a lot of visual assessment. Didn't pull at too many loose ends, but you know, things that we could see from the surface. And then had a few progress meetings to talk about the things that we saw and some of the more important areas, and then presented those findings to them a few weeks back. So the document that we have put together is somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 pages. We'll just do sort of the summary page from each of the buildings, and then a few of the really key kind of pieces to each one. We'll share all that with Joel, and can, you know, get it all for those of you that want to spend an evening reading through it. We'll get that later.
If there is any questions,
Yeah.
anytime during the presentation, please feel free to interrupt and ask. We want this to be an interactive conversation a little bit, so don't wait until the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can start with the elementary school and talk about some of the, you know, the findings from our visit there. Obviously, the elementary school just kind of naturally is in the best shape. It's or it is in good shape. It, as a building, was just built coming up on 20 years ago, so it's been well maintained and is in good condition. I think from an actual material standpoint, there's the expected wear and tear that you'd imagine on some of the brick in the exterior with moisture. Inside rooms have seen a different level of update. So library just got new carpet this last year, but some other rooms haven't had it since it was built. So it's kind of identified in there that some areas need a little bit of finish updates, but for the most part, it looks to be in really good condition. The one thing that was a sort of priority from an admin standpoint was site circulation. We did spend some time trying to find a way to improve the vehicle traffic issue that's there, and in a, I don't know exactly the way to put it, but to spend the appropriate dollars on a 5-minute issue, we just couldn't find anything that was
Nothing stood out.
reasonable. Yeah.
Nothing stood out as a clear solution to that problem.
And it sounded like after the 9th Street reconstruction, things already had improved after that. So we didn't take that any too much further, but the mechanical and electrical systems, you know, we found no significant concerns with that. You know, with routine maintenance, those things are just in good condition. I think generally the building supports this century education. The pods and the kind of outside of the classroom breakout spaces that exist are really a positive thing at the elementary school. The gymnasium and the art room and the music room, those areas are adequate and you know, what we would like to see in this kind of facility. I think next steps that were mentioned is just to understand student enrollment and future growth, and kind of how between the middle school and elementary school those needs are addressed, and if that's something that the elementary school takes on or if it's a combination of the two. But you can see some images of both the good and the bad. Some of the staining on the block on the top left hand, some cracked sidewalks, but then you also have, you know, your great common spaces in the gymnasium. We did note the floor in the gymnasium is past its life. I think it's performed well, but for the expected life that the floor system has, it's in need of repair. How about the sound acoustics in the gymnasium? Because that was horrific. If you have like a
politician come in and present things, or whatever, like an important person in the community.
Yeah.
And you can't hear them speak sometimes because of the echo. Has that been solved?
We did put the system in there, the roof system and the
Yeah,
baffle
that has
system.
helped.
And then between the two, so we did do that a couple years ago, but.
And there's always probably more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Jim echo.
Well, and with acoustics in general, we always like to try with the minimal, to start out with the minimal solution, see how that works, and if that doesn't quite get to where you wanna be, then you can always add more. So, you don't wanna overspend on acoustics and make the space too dead, because then that's a separate problem. And you actually have spent too much money, overdoing what you were trying to solve.
You could make it too quiet.
Yep, you can make it too quiet. You can.
Kids can hear the whistle as the game's going.
Yeah, and a dead space has a whole different set of problems to it.
Well, that one could be more dead.
Yeah, it wasn't something we specifically noted. Obviously, we're there on a afternoon
Sure.
with no kids in the room, and
Just a side note if that.
yeah, something to
It
take-
operates well as a gymnasium, but not for speaking events.
Sometimes it's used as.
Yeah.
I thought that was improved though. I mean, at different things I've been at, it's gotten much better.
Yeah, we first put the side ones in, and then we
Yeah,
had another phase where we put them in up in the ceilings, and
yeah.
just in talking with like the PE teacher, have you heard it before,
Mhm.
to where it's at now? Night and day.
Yeah.
Because before, just the balls bouncing and everything. It
Oh my
was-
gosh, it was awful.
There's no way you can fix it with a few panels. But I mean, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Made it better for sure.
You know, within the classrooms, I think the classroom sizes are in the above average range. That was something we noted. I think the only thing that, you know, storage is always an issue in schools. Brad and the teachers are in the, you know, kind of constant battle of, is it a mechanical room or is it my storage room? So that was something that, you know, I don't know how much can be done about it, but if anything in the classrooms, it was just a little bit of storage.
That's every school.
Every single school we work with is the same way. The detail isn't gonna be legible, but this is the document that we put together as we walked around and just noted specific things, exterior, kind of site issues, and rated things on a scale from excellent to poor. In elementary school as a whole, I would say is average and above average. That I think is something, it's not worth trying to see, that'll be a part of the document, but
Mhm.
This is where.
This
where
is the
you
more
wanna
important
focus
one.
on, yeah.
Yep.
So
It's
this-
easier to see.
yeah, this is the, you know, the size, adequacy of the facility for the students. And at the elementary school, we only show one room that's in the small range. Everything else is in the ideal range with a couple of moderate, sorry. And I think that small one actually in our last meeting was identified as, it wasn't a classroom, I think it's special education. So it'd really be another green space. There is one thing that we noted with an office that's through a bathroom in an old locker room on this southwest side down here. A couple of accessibility and strange things with that where you're just trying to make space where space wasn't before. So I think as you study future growth, that would be a beneficial piece to just figure out some of those spaces that aren't where they belong.
Don't function as well as they probably could.
Yeah, having to go through a bathroom to get to your office and have kids through there, and just a couple of things like that.
So, you're gonna say about the elementary school, so the pods were
Yeah.
designed so that way you could just add pods if the expansion time
Correct.
came?
Yep.
So is that, like, that's still true?
That
Or
is still true. That is
That
still
rule
true.
hasn't changed?
That rule hasn't changed. The only issue with adding pods is you're gonna displace some playgrounds at
Mhm.
this point.
Yeah, and that would be the layout of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did look at that, and I think it was also intended that you could maybe just add a fifth classroom to each pod too. So at
To the west.
at the ends here, there might be opportunity to build a classroom in there, and it's pretty close to that tree line, so I don't know exactly where the property is and how much could be built out, but that was another thing that was.
Yeah, there's some utilities back there too, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
which we'd have to deal with, but yeah.
Mhm.
Am I asking too many questions yet?
Nope.
No, it's okay,
Nope.
it's good.
Okay.
Not from our standpoint.
Well, let's like wrap it up. Any other questions about the elementary school?
Elementary folks?
So the one red space, the special education area,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that's been identified too as something that they say is not enough space for what they're utilizing, and, you know, for the number of kids that they have down there.
Well, I guess that's my question to these gentlemen, because that space identified then, it maybe has, you know, 3 or 4 students at a time in it, so
Mm-hmm.
is it,
That would turn it green.
Can you
You
go
know,
back?
we're going
Yep.
with a typical
if it was a
classroom.
classroom of 20
Yep,
kids?
yep.
But yeah,
So
it's a
that
classroom
one
of
red
20.
space is their
Yeah.
space.
One of their.
One
Yep.
of the few, yeah.
One
I-
of those.
I think,
The other 2 yellows.
The 2 yellows?
Yep.
Go kind of whole middle.
Yeah, the
All
far
the way
one, the
across.
far one, the
From
bigger
group-
one's
from end to
also
end is also-
sped, so there's 1 and 2. There's 4 different sped.
Where are
rooms
they
there.
at, Joel? Can you get up and show us where they're at?
Which will be, yeah, kind of all through the middle of the offices, the little pull-out rooms. Those are bathrooms.
Janelle would agree with you in saying that they're all stress ed. I mean, she's not
Ev-
using them for other things.
Everybody has a different viewpoint.
The one point I was making is, those aren't classrooms of 20 kids in there.
Yeah.
They're
Right,
classrooms
right.
of
Just like
Right.
available
2 to maybe
spaces to
4
use or
kids
whatever.
at a time,
Correct.
so.
if it was full of 20 kids, it would be undersized, but
Right.
that's not the intention of the
And I
space.
would definitely agree with that, yeah.
And the same story for the 2 on the left that are in the moderate zone.
So is the biggest concern staff, the storage spacing in the school, or what's staff's biggest concern when they're in and out of the building and the rooms all day?
I would say some of the storage has more to do with the buildings and grounds. I mean, because we have desks that we need, don't need, where are we putting them, and where, you know, class sizes changed now. They went to tables versus desks, now we gotta store these desks somewhere. And that wouldn't just be elementary, that'd be K-12, the storage area, we're pretty limited, and so we try to move it to different areas, and then if you look in the front of the northwest corner of the bus garage, you're gonna see stuff in there too, which they don't like, but buses still fit, so that's part of it, I think, and I had it the last 2 schools I was at, same thing, that first thing gets cut out of a building project, storage.
Yeah.
And that's.
And hallways get smaller.
Yeah, we don't quite have a OT or PT area. It used to be much larger. We added that kinder start, so that took that area, so that was a smaller area. The ELD, the English language development area,
Where
that's,
did they put the pre-kindergarten?
so that's this one then.
Okay, so they took that one for.
Yep, and then, so then the early childhood moved. And so some of those areas are much smaller than they used to be. We don't really have an area for the ELL or ELD program. That's where they go kind of through the bathrooms, the office. It's a, bathroom's not used at this time, but it's not an ideal situation. So those are the areas that we don't have quite as well as we
Space
would
for.
like, yeah.
Mhm.
Sharing a lot.
And then those are areas that are getting more and more students too.
Yeah. I think we
You
see
said
that.
that was for the OL and the PT, or?
PT and OT, yeah,
OT.
occupational therapy and physical therapy. Because they used to have kind of a larger area to work. Now, that would use a portion of the gym and some different areas, but
Mhm.
so they don't quite have a home of their own.
Yeah, it's a
But it's-
conference
but-
room sometimes. so.
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, we use, for PT, we probably use district-wide, you know, a few hundred hours a year. OT, we use a lot more than that. It's more at tables in
Mhm.
different seating areas, but it's just a few students at a time.
The support spaces are more the ones that kind of get pushed out
Yeah.
as classrooms grow and things like that happen, so.
And when our enrollment went to 540 in elementary, everything got pushed tight.
Yeah.
Now we're back to the 510, it kind of eased up some, but yeah, when we were pushing 540, we were really struggling with just lunch lines and everything, trying to get everything through.
And this year, now we actually have an open classroom
Classroom.
that they utilize for their OT and PT and stuff
Yeah.
at times too.
Flexibility, yeah.
We happen to have a section of 3 instead of 4 in one of the grades.
Good to have flexibility.
For the middle school, you know, kind of the comment that I made about the elementary school, I think it's sort of easy to just guess which ones are in better and worse shape. The middle school hasn't seen an significant update in quite some time. When the high school was renovated, I think some of those common spaces like the cafeteria and gyms were improved, in the library some of that stuff was updated and allowed for a little bit more room to grow into the existing library and those spaces. But in terms of the conditions of the finishes and the systems, it's in the most need of repairs. So, we kind of noted the entry as the biggest problem. Sorry. There's an accessibility issue, and then there's a functional issue with drainage and that storefront, the door in the summertime and in the winter with all the expansion and contraction of that and the ground out there. It just seems like there's a lot of issues, but primarily accessibility is a challenge with that ramp, trying to get into the building. So,
and the stairs, I mean, they're just, they're showing their age.
yeah.
And if we get a snow or a little sleet or whatever, they become slick in a hurry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a constant battle trying to make sure we've had people fall on them too.
Is the ramp and the rail.
Right.
And that ramp actually isn't.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't meet.
Accessible.
It doesn't meet the widths and the different requirements. Yeah, so that's the glaring issue, but also, some of the things are getting tired in the classrooms. Casework, laminate edging and banding is starting to fall apart. Hardware
Ceilings.
on that stuff.
Yeah.
Ceilings, we know that the roofing issue, water feature thing that was going on has been resolved for the most part, and those tiles have been replaced, but when we were in there, it was
Water feature.
it was pretty tough, yeah.
We call them leaks.
As far as space too, the middle school is the most undersized. The classroom sizes are all quite small, and there's a lack of access to natural light, which we see as a pretty big priority in a lot of schools. So more major issues, I would say, at the middle school. In terms of what's there, the choir and band room are great size, great condition. I think those spaces are, again, some of the nicer pieces of the facility, the cafeteria, the gyms. But when you look at the classrooms, you can start to see just some of the aging of the facility. Here's that front entry, cones up to warn people already, and this was, I think, 9 months ago when we took these pictures. There's your water feature on the bottom left corner, trying to collect drips and drop it down into a 50-gallon bucket. You can see around the urinals in one of the bathrooms, just after all the cleaning and things over the 30-40 years of this facility, it's just starting to wear down. It's pretty, the block is kind of losing its finish and in tough shape.
The maintenance staff overall, I think we commend the maintenance staff.
Yeah.
They've done a really good job, but maintenance only goes so far before it starts.
Yeah.
The finishes and materials and fixtures just are old and falling apart.
Yeah, I think, for systems, the lights and the mechanical systems, that's probably a great point to that stuff is it's been maintained well, but it's getting towards the end of its life. The light fixture types, in the hallways, it's really dark and the lights flicker, and it's not.
They're not energy efficient.
They're not energy efficient, and it's not, the right kind of light for what we would design today. Also, some of the carpet, there's broad loom carpet in rooms, and that's just sort of difficult for maintenance. If you get a tear or a spill, you can't just pull up a tile and replace it. It's one damage away from the whole room needing to be replaced. Again, this is kind of the details of it. I think average and below average was where a majority of things hit for the middle school. Accessibility wise, that front entry was one thing that we noted, but then the admin staff has kind of made this comment too, but there is a long distance between restrooms, so I think that was something that we looked at as well a little bit, was just there's classrooms pretty far out to the north that are quite a ways away from the restrooms in the middle of the building, so, if there were to be projects, that could be an area to look at as well. But this shows the same thing that the elementary school had with classroom size per students, and almost all of the classrooms are undersized. I know that enrollment changes a lot at the middle school and things are up and down, and this is based on an average class size. But it's you know, a majority of it is in the small zone, not moderate or average, or ideal, I guess. So this is kind of, you know, one of the larger areas of concern.
Well, you know, again, this is probably not a surprise to too many people, so we just kind of laid it out in black and white, and described some of the issues.
Is there a simple solution to the entrance?
A simple solution? There's a simple solution, but it doesn't necessarily coincide with cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would that be?
We have that's kind of
We're
the
gonna
second
get to it,
half,
yes.
entry
Okay.
studies. So
Good.
we can get to that after we talk about
Or
that.
just
Structurally.
We're intertwined.
Yeah, the structure of the middle school, I mean, you guys look at that, and it's,
We visually looked at it, and the only picture, or the only really spot we saw, which I'm sure people are aware of, is in that gym.
Mm-hmm.
The only spot we saw that was of any structural concern, and I'm not even,
I'm not.
it's not really structural per se, because the gym has pre-engineered metal frames. So this is just an issue of a wall moving.
Okay,
Which wall is this?
which wall is
This
that?
That's
is
the
the
north
one we're
wall,
having-
the
one
north
that's
wall
on
of that
next
gym.
That's the one you're
17th,
talking about.
The north wall of the middle school gym.
Okay,
Yep,
that's the
yep,
one,
yep,
okay.
yep.
Coming around the 17th, is
Yep.
the
Okay.
estimate coming in to work on it.
You can look at it when you're done here if you want.
No,
It's just, you can tell something is.
There's a lot
You
of.
see what it looks
I'm
like right there.
good.
Well,
You guys are on
this,
top.
that's the wall that the addition to the gymnasium to the
Yeah.
north happened, so
Okay.
different, you know, settlement and changing the load with the roof and things like that.
Well, and there's a lot of different things that could be going on with that wall. Without getting into some more detailed testing and probably bringing in a structural engineer, we can't tell you exactly what's going on, we just know that there's an issue there, yeah.
Okay.
And that is not a structural wall, which is good to know.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
it's separate from the structure, it's just a partition wall.
Right,
Mhm.
well, that's good,
Sounds like it's being addressed.
yep.
Okay. Any questions on the middle school? Okay. For the high school, you know, the high school is the oldest building, but it has seen the most recent updates, so I think, you know, it's kind of similar to the elementary school where, things have stayed in good condition, aside from a few unique areas like the cafeteria floor has some
Bubbling,
settling and
yeah.
bubbling and things that have happened. And in a couple of classrooms, we noticed some other flooring irregularities, I guess, and a ceiling tile here and there, but in terms of general condition, the spaces are in good condition. And exterior wise, a couple of very minor things, you know, maybe a snow removal truck hitting the side of the ephes, putting a hole in it, a couple of those kind of things, but nothing beyond what you would expect. And I think generally there is, you know, space-wise, a lot of the additional the classrooms that were part of the addition are up to a great standard in terms of size and you know, layout and that kind of stuff. Some of the original spaces that were just refreshed will be what you see as on the lower end of the size requirements, but.
And a few of those spaces are, I think we identified as SPED as well, special ed.
Just like the middle and elementary school, you've got the fitness area that's in great shape, the gymnasium's in great shape, lot of adequate size for choir and band and all of those support kind of programs. Here's a few pictures just with the floor in the cafeteria on the top left, and in a classroom on the bottom left. I think there was a plumbing addition, so it was just sort of a Band-Aid, and there's maybe not a better solution for it. But the one area, as a part of the renovation, there were some areas that didn't get touched, and I think the kitchen is probably of the biggest concern. It's just, it's pretty original, and it seems to function really well, but in terms of maintenance, going so far, I think that's the most dated part of the high school. Conditions, similar to the elementary school, a lot of above average and average areas. I think, accessibility is pretty positive at the high school. The ramp on the backside, as you go out to the parking lot, I don't think it's considered accessible. It's too steep and kind of one continuous run, and then out the west, you can get out the doors, but there's not a great way to circulate to a parking lot. So there's a couple of things with wheelchair accessibility, but the main entrance and probably the number of entrances required to be accessible meet that standard. So nothing major. Oops, getting ahead of myself. So this is that same adequacy assessment. The ones here in the core are a little bit undersized. As Herm mentioned, I think a couple of those are special education spaces. So
Special ed, one's a credit recovery with same thing. The bottom left red one's probably got at most 6 kids in there at a time.
yeah. So maybe 4 or 5 of these spaces are actually classrooms that would be considered undersized. But if you're talking special ed, they're probably in the ideal range for a special education classroom. I think the library was an area that we, sharing between the middle and high school, we noted that as moderate because that's, in theory, that's a lot of kids in that space to consolidate together. But just with the evolution of libraries and the amount of books that people check out, it's still in a moderate range.
And moderate ain't bad.
Yeah.
Moderate's not a bad thing.
And the usage from the high school is probably considerably different just because of the research on computers they use now and stuff too.
Yeah, it seemed to be more of a maker space and kind of
Middle school.
use area when we were walking through, so it seemed to function pretty well. Any questions on the high school?
Structurally, again, that's good, okay.
Yep. Yeah, none of the buildings, in a very serious needs way had anything to note as far as structure or
Visually, from a visual
Visually.
standpoint,
Right.
if there was any concern in a particular area, we would bring in a structural engineer
Okay,
to get into an actual detailed analysis to see what was going on, but we did not see anything that would indicate that.
yeah.
good, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we can talk about the few studies that we did for a little bit more detailed future project work. The first one's going to be the middle school entry. This was kind of a little bit of a radical idea that we're going to share. It was kind of shot down pretty quick, and maybe for good reason, but we thought it was worth showing. I'm going to do this so I can zoom in for you guys. But in this option, we had discussed moving the entry for all students to where the high school is at. You would save a lot of space in renovation, but there's a lot of drawbacks with now your middle school principal is way down here in the high school. Every middle school kid has to come through here and get all the way back to the middle school. You're eliminating an exit down here, which we didn't study in terms of life safety and fire purposes, how much we would have to maintain for that, but just didn't appear to be as much of a viable option.
We still provided an exit off to the side there a little bit, and
Yeah.
that's all you really needed to do. You need to get out and be able to get 50 feet away from the building, so we figured you'd go to the east. but that, again, there were other issues with this option where it was deemed to be less desirable than some of the other options.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the ideas that we took a little bit further, this one is, I'll kind of keep it, let's start with the more zoomed out view and talk about the site first. This one's the smaller version of an addition of the two that were kind of looked at more closely. Site-wise, we would break apart the vehicle and the bus traffic. On the east side here, you've got plenty of room for buses to line up and have students load and unload throughout the day, or in the morning and afternoon. And then to the south of that, that notched out area would provide some staff parking, which we understand is a pretty big need for the middle school staff. And then parent pickup would just move west and be a little bit closer to the high school, so they could kind of break apart those two traffic instances.
And as we looked at, as we've talked to others, our concern in the morning especially is the pickup and drop off with the buses, and the cars are coming in the same way. If we could separate them in any way, shape, or form, we need to do that.
That's a great, because that corner right there of Roosevelt and then 9th Street is tricky, because if it's icy and the kids will jet across that spot right there, and that's where cars are they said that they could approach this way, that would be bigger safety.
Yeah, buses could kind of loop around the backside.
I like that one, because the kids sometimes they're pell-mell across the street, and then the cars and buses are all trying to get there, and then they're parking on the street on the sides of it. That would eliminate a lot of the
I think you'd see the staff that are all parking on the street and be parking there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
That'd give a little bit more.
It opened up
flow
the
for
sidewalk so you
parents.
could see better, because the cars wouldn't be on the road as much.
What's that building that's, the parking lot's over
It's a
about?
shed.
There's a,
Yeah, they're dandies, by the way.
we were worried about building where the trees and the shed are, but from the sounds of it, they're.
But
Can
the
you build
Derecho took
another
care of
building
most
for
of
your
the
most
staff
trees
and
are
storage?
Yeah, that took care of our problem.
Storage building, okay. For, as far as the entry itself, in this concept, there'd be a small addition where we would actually take that circulation, the ramp and the stairs, and put it inside. So you'd bring the entry up, it'd be that secure entry similar to the high school, where you've got a couple layers of, you gotta go through the office and, admin and get buzzed in and that kind of stuff that you see as a priority in a lot of schools. It'd provide a couple of offices, a conference room, and we'd move some things around with a classroom, but instead of having kids enter and go, enter the site and go down in the snow, they can just walk in the front doors, and that all happens behind the doors in a conditioned environment. Beyond that, with the admin area being relocated, this concept kind of provides a commons area for students to have some of those outside of the classroom learning experiences, study areas, the sort of this century educational opportunities with some breakout spaces and an additional classroom. In this option, we show a version of a restroom where it's the family style restroom. They're all individual with a shared sink area. It's a way to have a little bit more efficient numbers in your fixtures, but then you also get improved supervision and visibility of kids. We've done it in a few schools where it reduces the number of incidents with things that happen in the bathroom unsupervised.
Right, you got the open area where the sinks and stuff are. That's your supervised area, that it's clear shot into that area, and then you have your small little water closet room, which is your private area, and you'll see who, only one person comes in and out of those doors, and you'll see who that person is.
And they're floor to
as
ceiling,
opposed to
so
being
private.
several people going into a larger group restroom.
Right.
And it's just one concept. It could be,
Yep.
it could be a more traditional restroom in that same area,
Yep.
similar footprint, maybe a little bit less fixtures, but something to show for thought.
as we talked about these, went through these is just one idea. I mean, if we decide we wanna do something in an area, the ones I've gone through, they change about 15 times before you
Yeah.
get
Right.
to really what you decide you want, so.
Yeah, this is a first pass, kind of high level
Yep.
thought.
So what, how I'm understanding, you said you would build up the outside
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
at the front. yeah.
at the front, and then they would enter and then walk down or ramp down
Mhm.
into, or you would build that
Yep.
out.
And you'd have your
Inside.
steps on the inside.
Okay.
So where the parents drop off now and the sidewalk's kind of up high and they go down
Yeah.
7 or 8 steps, the doors would just be right at the top there.
Yeah.
So the building would sit up just a little bit higher and then you would walk down through that space.
And right now, our snow removal from down there is really
Oh,
a problem.
Yeah,
Every
I
time it
know.
blows and snows, there's 7 feet of snow down there.
I mean, there's, I mean, I'm sorry,
You
but
can't
with
get the
that,
big equipment
this
down there.
gotta be dealt with. This
Yeah.
is-
So like the dimensions
is
on that
bad.
entry area will be subject to whatever you guys decide is appropriate?
Yeah.
So if you have an entry area where everybody's gonna gather up, if they're gonna go down those stairs to the common area, how much space are you gonna take from like the band room? Isn't the band room behind that?
The band room is actually up here.
Yeah.
So it's the
Or
library.
The maker space or the library and then.
It's the library and then a couple of special education classrooms, I think.
Old middle school
The
library.
old library.
The old library, so what's being used for that now?
It's a- Look at this right here.
Wait, so where are the break, like the, cause I'm just trying to visualize in here, where's the current middle
Well,
school break room?
The staff
Right
room is
there.
here.
Right there, so that
then
would
it would be
change up there.
relocated and kind
Okay.
of stays within the admin cluster as it moves forward.
But that entry area can be really large because you're gonna build it all up and it can be right,
Mhm.
like how much space do you have to have from drop off to the actual entry of the building?
Exactly.
You have to have the letters standardized distances.
Yeah, you'd want to give some breathing room kind of out on your entry. I don't have a specific, but
Safety, like pillars or whatever?
bollards.
Yep,
Mhm.
bollards, those will all be included and all that? I mean, are you gonna add some of those?
We could,
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on how far you wanna go.
I mean, there's no like specialized number like the government says you have to have this.
Well, I mean, if you're talking federal buildings, yes. The federal government has, regulations that govern, federal buildings and how close you can get a vehicle to it and what has to happen between that distance and an actual vehicle driving path or parking area. That's,
The state
that,
doesn't.
state does
State of
not.
South Dakota.
Now, when you look at, law enforcement or some of those other type of, public safety facilities, they may gravitate towards some of those federal regulations just because they think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Not necessarily a requirement, but
Yep.
something to use as a reference.
Yep.
And we have, at our company, we have a specialist who is former law enforcement and does a lot of review with our, any school project, safety-wise, he helps us with the review of those kind of ideas and kind of comes in and talks about different levels of security and ideas that you could go to. Every school district has a little bit, different approach with it, but this is the second option that we came up with, and, there's probably dozens of different ways to come up with these, changes, but these are two of our kind of better ideas. This one would do more at the admin area. It actually builds out to the east instead of to the south. We would enclose that existing entry and kind of have it as an exit only, pull out that existing stair and ramp and just replace it with something more functional. You would have the parent drop off where it is currently, connected back to a big loop for the buses. We would also be able to provide some additional staff parking, a small lot kind of in the corner between there. But the building itself, this is a little bit more of a flexible option. It's obviously larger and would be more of a, more of an expensive option, excuse me. But it kind of allows for some of the conversations that we've had where does 5th grade potentially relocate to the middle school, and where could that happen? So in this study, this current option that we looked at would build out a similar amount of space with reception, conference room, couple of offices, a little bit larger staff and work area. We'd replace a classroom on the left-hand side there where the existing conference room is. Similar commons area in the center, but then we could build off this additional wing for another cluster of classrooms. And in this version, we just showed 6. It would have a locker area, kind of similar to the elementary school, where you kind of have a spot for those kids to put their stuff, and then their classrooms are just off of it. But there are things with this version that don't work so well. There's a football field here that in this version would be decommissioned as a football field. In that conversation, the activities director said they would be able to potentially work with the university or relocate that to the current practice fields. But we had also talked about this could be a more minimal classroom addition and run along the side of the building as well to potentially preserve that. That could be another study. But this is a more significant version.
Yeah, another option.
But like these options don't address the dark hallways,
No.
the poor lighting, the small classrooms.
Not directly, no.
Okay.
But the facility study talks about that.
Yeah.
As being an issue that we have an opportunity to deal with.
Right.
Now, if the district so desires to investigate one of these options a little bit further, or proceed with one of these options in whatever form it may end up looking like, part of that might be going back in and putting in new lights.
Yeah.
Addressing some of those other issues that we talked about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is all based on, the initial request for the project was to do a district-wide study, and then we already know that the middle school entry has issues. We already know that the next thing is the gymnastics center in the slides. So we studied those 2 things more closely, and then the rest of it was just findings based on our assessment.
Sure.
And that would be kind of the next step.
Okay.
It does give us more larger classrooms with more lighting than we currently have. So not all of them are fixed, but we get more than we had.
How many additional classrooms do you think, or are you projecting that it would be nice to have?
There could be a couple concepts that could be looked at as well. So the elementary may be fine with the size it is, but if it starts growing, then do we have the 5th grade move? Does that become part of an addition off, so they have their own space, but they're still part of the middle school? You see that a lot of times where it's a 5-8. Or does it mean if the elementary grows and we keep the 5th grade down there, now we have to add some rooms down there eventually? That will all dictate what's coming through the elementary as far as how it's going to affect the middle school and the high school. Right now, the study we had done a few years back, we were expecting it to change quite a little bit by now. Then COVID hit, and that changed everything. We dropped 70 kids all of a sudden when COVID hit. Best guess, we're sitting pretty good, but
If we're building.
it'd be nice to have it so that we can expand on it
Extra
later.
capacity.
Exactly, so whatever it is, we don't make it so we can't continue to make additions if we need it.
Extra capacity equals flexibility. You can sign me up for the show next time.
Well, and, like in this version, so beyond what's there now, if you didn't add the 5th grade, there's, with that kind of cluster at the top, there's 4 or 5 extra classrooms based on what's there now.
And
So
to be
you could
clear,
go back.
I'm not saying we're moving to 5th grade.
Right.
Let's get that.
Exclamation point.
I don't want everybody to say, because that's not, I'm just saying, things happen sometimes, and then you gotta see what's best, you gotta board has to make the decisions on how you move forward.
Yeah, that was just
Yep.
a version we
And
went
I
through.
said it at one point, so that's why.
But we could, with this version, you could alleviate some of the other smaller classrooms by knocking down a wall. And you could work on some of those other smaller ones since you have 4 or 5 additional here.
What happens to that space though with the field, because it's a functional field for the middle school to play football, what does it become? If this is the option we choose?
Yeah, it would still be maintained as a recreation area, it just wouldn't have the competition football field. So the middle school uses that field for their PE every day, and it would.
But as far as like, we would be able to use that for structured activities as far as like a field for football then?
It would not be a full football
Yeah,
field.
they could practice on part of it, but it won't be a full football field, so we either have to look at one of the other ones that are across the
Right.
north. But we also plan on moving a lot of some varsity games and stuff into the new facility as well.
Right.
As part of it, so I think a number of our lower level games are gonna end up being over there as well.
80-yard field,
Yeah.
9-man.
Hey, been there, done that.
And it could be used for junior football, the 40-yard field, you
Yeah.
know, it would still be usable, it just wouldn't be the full field.
Yeah.
With this
That was one of the
configuration.
downsides of this particular option.
Just as long as it's still functional, because we love to have green spaces, but it's also great to use them.
Yeah.
Because we even talked about at one time, if there was a hall and we just ran them more to the north, we'd maybe still have the area for the field. To leave.
It would, yeah, as we kind of went, just hold it right there for a minute, Jacob. Talked about doing something along this line, right?
What do you do for window light for your other classrooms though? Do those ones have outside windows, those ones you'll block off?
They do
So
now.
that would probably save the football field. It'd get a little snug there in that corner, but again, it would bury these guys a little bit. They would lose their natural light.
The music room and 2 classrooms, yeah.
Skylights.
Yeah,
It'd be like, you'd be adding.
in that version, you'd have
The
to have a
hallway could
corridor
have-
through the middle, so you could have daylight that comes
Yeah.
down through the corridor and then is shared between the classrooms. There's lots of ways to bring in some light. But yeah, this just kind of shows the site. It eats into a corner of the football field, so the football field wouldn't be useful, but there's still plenty of recreation space out there.
But then we'd have to talk about gymnastics and how those options may play into that green area as well.
So that's a good lead into the gymnastics conversation. As a part of that, you know, we were tasked with looking at 2 things: an addition for the gymnastics program, or building a standalone facility, and kind of, you know, seeing where that could happen and what the pros and cons of each would be. This just shows the versions of both on the site. You know, one thought, and I know that just like the football field, this displaces some other programs, but it could be built at the existing field north of the tennis courts. It could be built across from the high school in the land that you guys purchased to the south. You could build it on the football field if you add that addition. You know, the exact site of a standalone facility is less specific. But in terms of an addition, it really made the most sense to build it off of the existing new gymnasium.
That would be most likely the most economical.
Yeah.
Is the addition.
It would line up then with our locker rooms and so on that.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what makes it more economical. We could share some of those facilities.
Yeah, you can see that in this version. You know, as a standalone facility, you've got to have all the storage, concessions, lobby, restrooms, 2 locker rooms. It was part of the conversation was, can it be multi-use if you're going to build a standalone facility? Could we build it so that there is a gym floor underneath, and in the summertime could be used multiple seasons or multiple sports? That was just one concept, so that is shown in the dashed line. But to do a facility standalone with all those things, in this version it was about 17,000 square feet. It'd be a pretty straightforward structure. Or in this version, we just kind of accounted for the spaces that are needed. For the addition, like Mr. Jorgensen said, you could share a lot of those additional spaces. So concessions, it'd be a bit of a trek, but you could use the same concessions back near the gym. There's a bunch of locker rooms there that would be easily repurposed for gymnasts and visiting teams. You would still have to build likely some fan, visitor restrooms, maybe an office space, a lobby, and then, in a lot of gymnastics facilities, we see a tumbler space or kind of a flex space for the youth gymnasts. But the size on this version is more in the range of 11,000 square feet, so there is a fairly significant reduction in the size to be built as an addition. It comes with eating into the football field. There's a geothermal well under this parking lot thing that we've shown. So it'd be great if you could just build right here, but it's not possible with all the wells and
It's really expensive to move geothermal wells.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yes, it does. And
Can you
where's
put
that
parking
at?
lot over the top of them?
You can. It's basically this entire rectangle under.
Oh.
And actually in the expansion project, they had noted for a parking lot here as an alternate, I think.
That would also be nice, cause that gets also hairy with the youth after school things, and those kids will get, once again, dart across 11th Street, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna run into somebody.
Yeah. So you could build a nice entry, kind of set it back from the current facility so that exit can still happen out of the locker room there. But you build a nice entry with an access drop-off area and parking, just kind of create a new addition to the east. Yeah. Those are
What are the other uses for the gymnastics center? Who else uses that facility, or who else would use a facility like this?
Right now, our standalone is just gymnastics, but I'm aware of it's being used. I mean, we have a gymnastics program that goes on outside of our gymnastics season as well, but it's being used strictly gymnastics right
Do
now.
a little bit of PE in there, not much.
Oh, yeah. Lots of-
Long jump will go in there and use a bit.
But I mean, if you were to
Mostly
build a
gymnastics.
facility, would there be additional people using this besides the gymnasts?
Have a heck of a birthday party in there.
Well, obviously during season, it's gonna be gymnasts. And then it's a matter of right now, that program that's being run isn't through the school.
Right.
It's a separate program. Whether we continue to let them utilize that, or do we utilize it for something else?
The thought in this version with the standalone was, when they have the high school meets at the high school gym currently, they bring everything in and put it on top of the gym floor. You could build it that way so that there's already, you wouldn't have a varsity level facility, but you could have kind of the elementary school version of a basketball court underneath, and then repurpose it by taking the gymnastics stuff down, using it as a basketball or volleyball gym. Off season.
I like the idea of having a new facility, though, I think the current facility in the parking lot is not the best, ideal situation. But, I'm assuming this is going to have a fairly substantial cost to it, so you'd like to see it utilized for something besides one sport.
But,
Mitch just said
depending
tennis,
on-
we use tennis in elementary right now. If there was a court available, we can utilize it for tennis as well.
Yeah, I just think that it's important that if we're talking about building something like this, that we figure out how to use it for other things as well.
Multi-use and flexible.
And this would be a practice facility, or would this be the actual?
This would be
facility
your
where this would be
gymnastics.
competition? So
They
this would
would
be the
have their-
competition, so where is the room for the seating and how many people can come and watch?
There's a little bit of seating there. I'm not sure how many seats we're showing, but
Because
Yeah.
that is kind of an issue right now.
Oh,
It's
gosh, yeah.
Not comfortable.
So you got it on 3 sides there,
Yeah,
right?
there's
And it would be significantly more than the existing facility.
And they'd be decent bleachers, like more comfortable.
They don't make comfortable bleachers.
More
Maybe you guys know as
More
much, I haven't found them.
Well,
They
they-
sell these chairs at Walmart and Costco, and
Hey,
you
that
just
was-
take them with you.
Aren't there booster club versions of that?
There are.
Yes, there are. Seem to have a few.
And then compared to the existing facility, you can see that there's more in terms of the different apparatuses and things too. There's a couple of different runways for the vault. There's more space for beam, and you could it's got some elbow room, versus the current, you know, it's. you're
Long and narrow now.
Running right in front of, running right in front of you and all that stuff, so. I think in terms of capacity, it would be sort of as much as the school would wanna look into. I mean, it's pretty easy to add with this length of different program pieces in gymnastics. It's pretty easy to add another row and add 50 more
Well,
seats.
even if you have to still use the main gym, it would be right, but it'd still be attached, you can roll
Yeah.
apparatuses into the gym.
If
This
you-
could be a
if-
practice
if you needed
facility, so
to.
then you can have people watching practice.
Yeah.
Cause even watching practice wasn't fun.
Right.
We have the one big meet every year, which would probably still require us to move for that.
But
The other
it'd be a
meets
lot
we-
easier to move,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so that you even
Especially
consider
depending
just
on the
this as a
weather.
practice facility, and our main competition is still in our glorious gymnasium.
Anything with wrestling, I mean, that we could do in there?
So overlaps with some math.
Same season.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the season, yeah.
Would we still be able to let the community use that space though for their
We
gymnastics
could.
program?
I
Or
think
would
so,
be
that
just
tumbling
the community
area.
attached
We
to the
could,
school?
with that entrance to the north, we could make secure entry off to the south, so if you had the public using it, you could secure the school away from this particular piece. Problem would be access to the locker rooms then.
Mhm.
Would the school want to allow that? Would the district want to allow that?
We do for other groups like AE wrestling.
Yeah.
So I mean, we do have that, it's not always perfect, but it's part of, open building.
Right.
It's a good program.
It
Try
is a
to
good
accommodate
program.
as best we can.
It's huge.
As long as it doesn't affect our
And then
program.
there's storage, is there storage? Where's the storage area?
Yeah, I think, this kind of cluster is, a little bit undefined. There could be plenty of opportunity for storage. I think this is
Cause
just.
there's currently storage along, like in the, you know where the storage rooms is, or right off the gymnasium.
Mhm.
What kind of storage are we talking about here?
There's storage
Or
right
if
there.
there's
All
one.
the extra apparatuses and the replacement parts and all that, like the.
There'll be a big open building across the parking lot after this is done.
I was gonna say, are we gonna tear that thing
I think
down?
that one's gonna
Let's not
tear
get
down.
too far
Yeah.
into it.
We're
always looking for storage.
It's gonna be a parking lot.
Storage. Cheap
We're always looking for
storage.
storage.
I think this area here, it's,
I wanna tear that.
it's not large, but that was just kind of shown as
Wouldn't
an
be
additional
storage, have that
storage
parking
in
over there.
space.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right,
If
you
you
got
got
a
that
new parking
lot.
lot.
you
That's
could-
what I said, we got
Yeah.
parking over there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
For
Like,
sure.
new parking lot there.
You store it and you don't have to buy it again.
Oh, gosh.
Any other,
That's
I was gonna say, yeah, that is a farmer right there.
Might need this car 4 years
from now. Let's get rid of some stuff,
I
yeah.
can't find it when I need it, I have to buy another one.
Yep, exactly.
I
Gosh.
should probably break the news of the ballpark figures too. when we-
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to hear that.
We do have some.
Easy, they changed a little.
Do we have anything else to look at here?
This is kind of the last piece that was a pretty quick, easy study. It was just, it seemed like there was need for roughly a 10,000 square foot expansion to the bus garage. It could be a useful thing, just worth studying, expanded storage and support for the bus, so, buses. Okay, so,
Do I need to stay here for you to put up some numbers?
yeah, here's kind of our cost breakdown for each piece.
We just
So-
asked them for a ballpark, so we had an idea.
These are inflated prices.
They have some escalation involved.
Yeah. But with the, kind of, you add one classroom and everything changes to the middle school edition, like, the way that we look at it today would evolve pretty quickly when you move into the next phase of study, but just as a way to give some sort of idea for cost, with the middle school entry, if you're looking at the larger, more significant option, the opinion there is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.75 to 4.2 million for total project cost. That includes all the soft costs and fees that are involved with construction. The smaller version is quite a, it's more in the 1.33 million to 1.55 million range. Gymnastics center for the standalone larger facility, looking at 7.32 to 8.1 million. For the addition, it'd be 4.63 to 5.1 million. And then the bus garage, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.8 to 2.2 million for total costs.
That's the
What kind of
ballpark.
what kind of bus garage is that? What's the size? I mean, it has to be
10,000
square feet. 10,000 square feet, so that would be.
We built the existing one for 800,000.
Yeah.
But,
And
Geez, you could probably build something. Just
What the heck?
I'm like, can we put like a Morton building?
Is it that okay?
Yeah,
I think, you know, the details of the actual structural systems, you could.
Those are conservative numbers.
Yeah.
You know, when I look at it real quick, when I look at the middle school entry, the two different options, both are pretty feasible as we look at it right now. Separates the busing out as well, which is a huge safety
Yes,
issue right
it
now
is.
that we should address.
Which one are you talking about?
Either of the middle school
So the, like
entrances to me make sense, whether we want more
even the
classrooms.
small one would solve the problem with the parking. Or the
It'd still be
driving.
better than what we have
Yeah.
right now by a long shot, and have everything inside, and we'd have the two separate lanes, which would be, again, I'm looking at more from kid safety.
well,
But you're
it's
not adding
safety,
the gym.
but
Or
two,
a hybrid of the
You're
two.
not adding.
Yeah, or something in between
Yeah.
them, I'm just saying they look pretty doable in a short time, that's why we were putting the capital outlay aside.
and I think the other part of that though is the updating of our lighting and just some things like that, I think is, again, I look at that too as safety and some mental health issues, it's so dark in that area, and, that
Those would
lack
be
of
easy
natural
things to add on
lighting,
to
yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah,
More detail, you know, as you get into the site, so
yeah,
it'd be easier to add more detail.
okay.
Kept saying we need ballpark, and they didn't want to give much of a ballpark right away. Just want to give an idea of roughly what it could be. Now, we all know when you go out to bid.
Yes.
Well, and once we get into more details, these numbers will tighten up.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, is just the variability of it. It's sketches on a piece of paper. There's a lot of site things involved with the middle school entry, you know, the slope is significant from the front to the bottom, so depending on soils, you know, it can,
Right,
there's more information that's needed to have a really good idea.
Do you feel like your ballparks are mid-range, low, or high?
That's why there's a range. That's why the range is that's our high end
I don't,
and
I
our
don't
low
wanna be
end.
hung up on it.
We- You know,
That would double your bus garage size.
So
So
you're
it'd be
hoping
like
it's
you're
not gonna
building
be
a whole
more
nother.
than your top number?
Yeah.
correct.
The bus
But
garage
we
isn't.
try to be conservative on the top
So this is a
end,
very easily
and the low
adjusted.
end,
Great. Don't get me wrong.
you know, depending on, finishes and
Right.
exact details, we could be closer to the low end.
Yeah. You know, for the bus garage, the type of structure that it is, if it's insulated, heated, the lights, it could add up really quick, or it could be affordable. pretty
Yeah, if it
quickly.
was, if it was
Bus lives in
unheated,
there.
yeah, if it
Right.
was unheated,
There we go.
that's a
You already got
chunk.
one.
Well, and, right, if it's a maintenance facility versus just storage, there's a lot of,
That we already have.
yeah.
All we were looking at is a real rough
right,
square footage number on that one right now. Like you said, that one was fairly conservative without really any detail to it.
Would that be metal, or would that be?
It would still probably be metal because that's what you have out there now.
That's what I was asking.
But again, it really has to do with the bits and pieces that go with that metal, you know, whether
Yep.
it's heated and.
Yep. Makes sense.
You budgeted only 2 million.
That's
Two
for this year.
additional, so on July first, we
additional.
have 3.55 million
Yep.
available for projects.
right.
And so then you would come back with a supplemental budget, or we just do
No,
it?
that's in that budget we
That's
passed.
in it,
Yeah,
There's funds there right
So
now.
There's funds there for this, we've been planning this for a few years now.
to get it started.
yeah,
Then
Okay.
each July, in theory, we have an additional million to add. That's all if we don't do any lending or borrowing or bonding.
Yeah, so it'd be capital outlay.
Very nice.
We'll have to
That's
you're
work on
setting
that.
really good, I mean, you know, fortunate.
This
And it
one-
would benefit the school district and the community and everything else, so it's nothing that would be completely.
So, did you guys look, I mean, I don't think you probably did, and we probably didn't ask them to, but like use of this land over here at all for future?
Looks like it's gonna be a football field.
It could be, like we said right now,
The
it
only
could
thing we looked at was that one gymnastics option,
Okay.
was the only thing we looked at. I, I threw out one idea once, and it was like, yeah, you try and sell that to the city, and we'll see how far you get. It's like, yeah,
Well, what was
that's
your
all right.
idea? I'm curious.
Well, actually, the idea was to route all traffic around that block, and you still leave it as a drive lane per se, but there's school districts that will close off that part of the street during school, to route traffic around it, and then you'd be able to utilize that for your parking. If you put your gymnastics over there, you wouldn't have to worry about kids walking across
Okay.
a busy street, that sort of stuff. But it was like, yeah, the city probably ain't gonna wanna do that.
I don't see me excited about it.
Yeah, so, you know, I was like, okay, that's fine, you know, I know it's just, it just was an idea, you know, just wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah.
I know.
But you know,
No.
But it's a good
down the
thing
road, it
outside
could
the
be,
box.
whether the elementary goes, whatever it may be, does the time come versus adding on here, does it make sense to
Right.
have a, 4 or 5 building over there
Yeah.
or something, so the elementary has more of a arcade one, or whatever it may be. To me, that land, whether it's 2 years from now or 20 years from now,
Right.
Well worth it.
it'll be there for whoever, for whatever board's here at the time, whatever admin's here. It's wide open. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be used for whatever, and the board, those that were on the board when it came available, it's not often a block, city block becomes available adjacent to your school.
That we can pay for.
Yeah, we could pay for or not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Why don't we ever talk about?
It's a good option to have.
To the current elementary school, because they built it with pod design, so you could just add on when you needed to. And we never.
I thought we did look at that
Yeah,
at
we
one
did.
point.
Well,
and-
adding a pod, like Jacob said, to the end of each, adding a classroom, then each of the pods become 5, but
Right.
the only downside, as I look at that, is a lot of our sections are 4. So you'd have 4th grade here, but now you've got an extra, I mean, who are you putting in that extra pod?
Yeah, it would be a displacement of a
Right.
grade level, because no grade level needs 5.
Split them up. Once you
But
combined them.
it would be a way of, with all those, whether you wanted to have that be more of the ELL room or some of the bigger pull-out for OT, PT, whatever.
Right.
Because at one point, way back, we looked at the entrances to the elementary and whether we moved the office, so this was about 3 or 4 years ago, or whether we changed it with the kitchen, so that kitchen we got a little bit more to the northwest. But again, just because of how it's built, it's not real conducive to moving the offices. very
Not
much.
that part of the school, yeah.
Yeah.
Not that part of the school. The classroom pods were built for expansion, but not that front end very well, yeah.
So we're making a decision tonight?
No, this was just, okay, here's the main motion.
No, I'm gonna vote no on this one.
This was just to give you ideas so they can bring forward what they've looked at, and the structural parts of it, they were sitting fine. But there are things that we can do to improve, and since I've been here, I've heard about the middle school entrance every year.
Yes, and it's an issue.
So in 8 years, and finally a couple years ago in the goals, I said, are we either gonna look at doing
Yes.
something or take it off, because I'm tired of it always being there and we're not addressing it.
No.
We'll be able to do something, we'll have the funds, I just think we need to make, at the very least, some changes there.
And I would like us to continue to move forward with this. I don't want us to, like, okay, this is great, thank you for coming, and then 3 months down the road, well, what are we gonna do? I mean, I really think we need to just stay on top of this, and, I don't know if next board meeting, if we, or how we wanna handle it, but,
So hypothetically, if we, and I know you guys don't want to probably answer this question, so you can tell me to buzz off if you need to. If we do like the large middle school renovation, is that like a 18-month project? Is that? do you have a ballpark idea? Cause I mean,
So
a
now we're
put
talking
us out of-
construction timeframes, or are we talking design and construction? Are we talking
I would
from
say
start of
construction.
design to end of construction?
I would say
Sure.
just the construction,
Just the
like where
construction?
it'll displace some of our current areas that we might then constrain even more to get to
I
the
guess
new
I wouldn't
space.
see it as 18 months, probably closer to 10 to 12.
Okay.
So it'd still mess up a school year,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But a building's fast.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, if you decide to do something and then you lose
There's
certain
always
things,
gonna be some
there's gonna be
displacement.
downsides to it, obviously,
That'll
but.
have to, and it would even compact things more.
Yes.
Or would we end up utilizing some rooms, you know, as we go through, there's a prep time. Those rooms may become actual classroom during that time period. You know, people would have to move.
And
But
we're
it's
just-
part of going through the bad.
Yeah.
We were just discussing in another project, depending on electrical requirements, there are certain electrical equipment, depending on what happens here, that still have a lead time of up to a year. Switchgear,
Oh, yeah.
if we get into switchgear or anything like that, those are still like 52 weeks or so lead time on that sort of equipment. So hopefully we can avoid that sort of complications with
But
whatever we do.
Jordan mentioned about building, but from, let's say from commitment to one of these projects,
From the start of design to
yeah,
end of
because
construction.
design takes some time.
Yeah, that'll take some time. I mean, I would say design is gonna probably take 6-7 months.
Okay, that's good.
You know, so if you add that onto your construction, then you are at that
18-month project.
Yeah,
Right.
18-month project. yeah.
Timeline roughly.
Yeah. So,
Well, I think tonight, the main thing was just to get
Yeah.
Yeah.
you some
Yeah,
ideas,
just
see what can
curious, yeah.
be done, and if we decide we want to move forward, decide what we want to do moving forward, and then start focusing on that area, not on
right,
5 areas. You know,
Exactly.
here's the area where we're gonna focus on first, here's our first priority. So how do we wanna make it, what size, is it that small, big, is it somewhere in between? And what is it we want in there for sure? You know, like, I know one thing, I talked about the entrance, not just snow removal and the safety coming in, but I also really like the idea of the office area is right as they come in as well.
most definitely, if we're
So,
gonna
I
make a
mean,
change.
those are the things that, and if you go down to now the conference room they have right now, you put the table in, but you sort of gotta move to get around the table to actually, it's tiny. So things like that would be good to have a real conference room when parents come in, so you could have a good.
I will echo that, cause I spent way too much time in that conference room and you felt like you were in a
It's tiny with no windows.
Oh,
and-
no windows.
and it's just little. So I mean, those are the things that would be brought forward. Here's what we want. If we do this, here's what we want. You know, because we've talked about whether it's the ramp, or in some cases, they just have a lift.
Yeah,
You go in
and
and
that
look.
might be a better solution in the overall scheme of things, just thinking about, you know, we show a ramp in there, but just thinking about how much height we have to deal with, that ramp's gonna probably be significantly longer than what we're showing. So in the overall scheme of things, if you really don't use the ramp very often, or don't foresee using the ramp very often, a limited access, limited use lift would be probably better use of your space.
And cost-wise, it's not like it's an insane difference.
No,
between the
because the
two.
ramp's
Really?
gonna cost a
lot.
lot too, so.
It's gonna need a lot of space.
Yeah.
Well,
Nope.
and two, we do have access through the high school, if there should be a situation where we have multiple,
True.
you know, if we had to.
Yeah, true, in that respect.
Yeah.
But again, as being a entrance to your middle school, it needs to be accessible.
Oh,
It-
absolutely,
it
yes,
really-
yes,
yeah.
yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes. Okay, well, thank you so very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time that
You're gonna get
to
the
this.
packets to us, so. we can
Yes.
Yep, yep, we'll
Get it
finalize this and get you some, PDF, some electronic copies, as well as probably some, do you want us to print some hard-bound copies off as well?
It'd be
or-
good to have at least a couple.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
all right, we can do that. We can do
Reference
that.
to.
That would be a reference, cause it's changes, this
Yeah.
is like their initial,
Well,
one,
these-
and it won't
these-
look anything like
Yeah,
what this.
these, we like to refer to them as living documents,
Yep.
they're a
Yeah.
plan,
Absolutely.
and every time somebody touches it, it changes.
Yeah.
So.
But your
Some
PDF
don't.
version of that, would, I mean, a person could print that off and
Yeah.
still get a good rate,
Yep,
okay,
yep.
so that would be really great.
Yeah, we'll get that shared, probably
Yeah.
just send it to Joel and have him
Yep.
send it out.
We just ask that when you print it off, you please leave our little logo on
Oh,
there.
absolutely, yes, most definitely. Okay,
All right, thank you
all
very
right,
much.
well, thank you guys very much.
We'll be in touch, let us know when you have that ready and get sent.
Yep.
And we'll see direction as we go each month where the board's at.
Yes.
It didn't sound like there's really any changes that I heard, so we will just finalize this document
Yeah.
Yeah.
and get you copies of it.
And all what you talked about there with middle school, that all included the two different lanes in the price, right?
Yep, that's the site work.
Yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks
Thank you.
again,
Thanks,
guys,
everybody.
greatly appreciate it.
Have a
All
good
right,
night.
next thing on the agenda
Safe travels.
is to adjourn.
So moved.
Rob,
Second.
second by Rich,
Yes.
yes, the last time. All right.